friends present here, and as you know that today we will discuss Matthew Arnold, culture and anarchy. So we will discuss this thing, and I have also prepared a slide so that you will get some visual effect as well. So it is a prose text, as you already know. So we will see what are the things that are mentioned in this text, and what are the views expressed by Matthew Arnold in this text titled Culture and Anarchy. So I'm sharing my presentation with you all so that you'll be able to see, and and I hope now you are able to see the slide. So this is the first slide, and what we know about Matthew Arnold, that he was an educator, and he was in a way like education officer. He was also a poet, and we find that there is one poem titled Dover Beach that is much anthologized, that we also know. And he was also a professor of poetry at Oxford University. So this biographical information we have with us about Matthew Arnold. And we also know that when he was born and when he died, so he was born in 1822 and died in 1888. So this type of information is also useful because many times in net examination they ask such type of information, like you need to arrange the critics or the poets in a correct chronological order. So sometimes this type of information is better. So what we are going to study in this presentation, in this 1 hour, or let's say more than 1 hour lecture. So why Matthew Arnold? Like why in the present situation, in the present scenario, we are studying Matthew Arnold. That is the first thing. Then we will also examine that did he say something or anything new, like what the ideas that are expressed in culture and anarchy, they are new or not. Then the views that he posited, that we will also see, and those views expressed by Matthew Arnold, where they are leading towards. So that we will also see, and what are the problems which are associated with that views, that we will also see. So this is a brief outline of what we are going to do in an hour, or let's say 2 hours session. So to start with, why Matthew Arnold? That why should we study Matthew Arnold? So if you want to understand English and American thinking about literature in the 20th century, because we know that Matthew Arnold belongs to 19th century. So he is a 19th century figure. And if you want to understand what English critics, American critics, they used to think in the 20th century, then it is a good start. So we will have some base, and on that base we can build up our building. So ideas generally, uh, they have a progression. So we need to study them retrospectively, progressively, fine, so that we can have a better understanding. So broadly, we can see that Arnold regarded literature as a criticism of life. Now, what is the meaning of criticism of life? Because we all are aware of criticism of literature, and the criticism of literature mainly broadly deals with uh, analyzing a text, textual analysis, that type of thing that is associated with criticism of literature. That means when we study a text closely, when we study a text critically, then we use this term criticism. So, what is criticism of life? That we will also see, but this is a view that Arnold regarded literature as a criticism of life. Then, at the same time, when it comes to literature, then Arnold believes that literature has a pleasing aesthetic qualities. Fine. So, literature has a pleasing aesthetic quality. That is one thing. uh, Something that is pleasing to you, something that has some aesthetic values associated with that, that is literature. But at the same time, an educational role is also associated with literature. So this is like literature is for teaching you how to lead your life in a better manner. That type of thinking is also associated with Matthew Arnold, that you can see here. Then also, he believed that the persistence of English culture was threatened by the growth of Philistine values. Now, this word Philistine or Philistinism, that we will also study, that what is actually Philistine values. So these are the things that are said by Matthew Arnold, and in this presentation, we will look at these things in detail as well. But the next question arises, that did he say something new? Did he say something, uh, let's say, very revolutionary, something that is out of the blue, that has not been said by the previous critics? That is also a matter of concern. So, one such concept is given by Arnold, that is the concept of touchstone. So we know touchstone in the practical life, like what is the use of touchstone? Touchstone is used to check whether a metal is a gold or not. So that is the practical purpose of touchstone. So here this touchstone is actually a metaphor used by Arnold. And what is this touchstone? So again we are talking about some standard. Arnold is giving some standard, some literary criteria for assessing what is literature and what is not. So again, two ends like plus and minus, and if the touchstone passes that thing, then that is literature. If touchstone does not passes that thing, then it is not literature. So basically, this touchstone is an answer to a question: what makes literature literature? So that is uh, the literary criteria that we have, the standard that we have. But this just touchstone thing is not entirely new, because we find that Aristotle also talked about this thing, and Aristotle emphasizes the cathartic quality of aesthetic experience. So we have seen that when when Matthew Arnold said that literature has pleasing aesthetic qualities, in point two, as you can see, literature has pleasing aesthetic qualities. The similar type of views are expressed by Aristotle, and Aristotle emphasizes the cathartic qualities of aesthetic experience. So we have this concept of purgation given by this catharsis, and associated with this cathartic qualities, purgation we have. So a cleansing effect that we have. So that is expressed by Aristotle. At the same time, I.A. Richards mentioned and viewed poetry that it has saving power, that it has saving power. So it can save us. It can save us. So again, like why poetry is important, then again, that is a similar kind of view that we have in Matthew Arnold. Then F.R. Lewis, he had this conviction of the moral role of literature in the evolution of civilization. So again, this moral role, that means this educational role given by Matthew Arnold, is not new. We find this in F.R. Lewis as well, that there is a moral role of literature in the evolution of civilization. Then at the same time, we also find that there is one letter written by Thomas Jefferson, and in that letter, Jefferson later on became the president of United States. And what's there in this letter? Uh, 1771 letter, we find that what is said, like a living and lasting sense of filial duty is more effectively expressed on the mind of a son or daughter by reading King Lear than by other dry volumes of religions and other ethical documents. So again, literature has more impact. So again, when we look at educational role in people's life, then again literature has an educational role, and this is also expressed by Thomas Jefferson uh, when he observed in a letter written in 1971 that a living and lasting sense of filial duty is more effectively impressed on the mind of a son or daughter by reading King Lear. So this is King Lear, written by a tragedy written by William Shakespeare, and this is again it is expressed. So similarly, one such prime minister of United Kingdom once expressed that he has read Pride and Prejudice 15 times, and he also claimed that if someone wants to improve on his or her English, then a person should read many readings of Pride and Prejudice. So again, this teaching thing, the educational purpose is also validated. So we have seen that the ideas that were expressed by Matthew Arnold, they were not new, and they were also expressed by previous critics like Aristotle, I. Richards, F.R. Lewis, and uh, Thomas Jefferson. So this we have seen. So why he said what he said? So he said something. He talked about Philistine values. He talked about other things. So what made him to say such type of things? So we have various reasons. So first reason is that Matthew Arnold believed that English was threatened by the growth of Philistine values. Now Philistine values, they are associated with middle class, encouraged by the rise of a middle class obsessed with material wealth. So what he said, what he believed, that middle class is so obsessed with earning money or going behind material wealth that they do not care for any other thing. So this is basically this Philistine values, that everything is money is everything. For example, in America, we have a concept like time is money. So we are not saying time is literature. We are not saying that. We are saying time is money. So again, like everything is money. So what is this type of concept? This type of concept is Philistine attitude, Philistine values, and generally this is found in middle class, because if you look at middle class and if you observe like your family or like families around you, because all of us we belong to a middle class, generally we want to gain material wealth more than the intellectual. So we want to have a degree, we want to have a PhD, we want to have a net certificate, or we want to have publications, because we have only one goal. We have the goal that okay, we will get some job, we will earn money, we will live our life happily ever after. So I have observed many students, once they get a job, they stop studying at all. So like the job is only they were studying because only to get job, and once they secured a job, they stopped reading altogether. So only what they have read previously, that is fine, and they started earning money, or like okay, now I need to purchase a land, then I need to purchase a plot, then I need to make a building, a house, fine. So all such, they are always engaged in such type of things, but not in um, other things. So this is basically Philistine values mentioned by uh, Matthew Arnold, and during that time there was a rise in the middle class, and the tendencies of this material wealth obsession was very much high during that time. So that's why he believed that English was threatened by the growth of Palestine values. So this is basically values. That is, at the same time, he believed that religion has been undermined by Darwin's theory of evolution. So there was a greater impact after the theory of Darwin's that is known as the Darwin's theory of evolution, and it put actually a question mark on religion, that whether we human beings we require religion or not, or where there is a need of religion as such. So that was also uh, the publication of let's say Culture and Anarchy. That was also a resultant of or a reply to the Darwin's theory of evolutions. One such reason is also that, and he expressed the wish that poetry would take its place in men's heart. So poetry will replace religion, and what the place of religion uh, we have in our heart, and that place will be taken by poetry. So for that particular thing in mind, he wrote Culture and Anarchy, because these things were quite quite prevalent during that time. But at the same time, we find certain problems in Arnold's ideas. So what are the problems which are associated? First thing is, like, he believed that the values of the culture were eternally true for every age and all condition of human beings. Now, it is not possible. That culture is not a static thing. That we need to understand, first of all, that culture is always evolving. So when we say or when we place or when we give importance to one type of culture than other, then we believe that that culture is for everyone, that culture is for all, and that culture values are eternally true. But that is not the case. So something that was true in like 2000 years back, that cannot be true now, because culture is context based. So culture is contextualized. So we cannot say like something that is true for present day time which will always be true for future or for all the time. So that is one problem that we find in Arnold's idea. At the same time, he believed that all people at all times were capable of aspiring to the same ideals. Now, that is again a problematic view, because uh, we as a human being, we are also evolving, and we evolve each day. So it's not the case that the ideals, uh, like once you are a teenager, then you aspire to become like an actor. Once you are a teenager, you aspire to become like a cricketer. But once you grow up, then that aspirations goes. So similar type of thing is there, that we cannot to fix our aspirations. We cannot fix our ideals. That the ideals that we have will remain all the time same for all the people. So this is the second problem that we find in Arnold's idea. At the same time, he saw literature as the domain of high-minded intellectuals. Again, like high-minded intellectuals. Again, like all people, we know that they are not high-minded intellectuals. Some people are high-minded intellectuals. Some people are average. Some people are below average. Some people are illiterate even. Some people do not want to read books. So literature he saw as a domain of high-minded intellectuals. That means like only someone who is an intellectual, that person can read literature. And when such thing happens, then there is no space for pulp fiction. Like pulp fiction is like Chetan Bhagat type writing. So what Chetan Bhagat is writing is a pulp fiction. That is not high-minded literature for intellectuals. So that type of thing is then the comics that we have, like, and all other things that we have, then they are not actually for high-minded intellectuals. So this definition of literature, or this type of concept, actually excluded the writing of a larger part of populace. So that is like someone who is reading, let's say, erotic literature. Now erotic literature uh, is not supposed to be for high-minded intellectuals. So that type of literature is also available in the market. So that means like you are only focusing a minor part of populace, but not a larger part of populace. So these are the problems which are associated with Arnold's ideas. Then what are the Arnold's view? The touchstone view we have already seen, and it suggests using aspects of great literature of the past.
Sir,
Yes.
Hello, sir. Sir, I have one question. Sir, please can you view the third slide?
Okay, you want to see the third slide?
Yes, sir.
Uh, I don't know which one is the. You can see this is the first
Why,
slide. This is the
why,
second.
why he said and what he said.
Okay, 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 fine.
Uh,
It's okay.
sir, yes, sir. Sir, I have a question. I mean, as you are saying.
Yeah, listen to me. You can ask the question once the session ends.
Okay, sir. I will ask definitely. But sir, I have a
Because
little
because
question regarding
because because the thing is like
regarding.
something we will discuss in the later slides as well. So you will get there is a possibility that you will get the answer in the later slides.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir.
Fine. So that's the reason. First you listen to the entire thing, then ask the question.
Okay.
Fine. Yes.
Okay.
So that is the one thing. Now the Arnold's view. So the touchstone thing we have already discussed. So we are establishing a standard. We are establishing a literary criteria. Fine. That is one thing. Then this Philistinism, that is, English culture is seriously threatened by a process of secularization. Now, what is this secularization? To judge everything on the basis of scientific thinking or on the basis of logic. Now everything in life is not logical. Like something bad happened to you and you think like, what is the logic behind this that bad thing? I am always a good person. I have never done something wrong to anyone. Then why this thing happened to me? Similarly, the images, the metaphor, or the other things that poetry or let's say literature creates, that is again not exactly like a scientific thinking. So again, what Arnold says that English culture is seriously threatened by a process of secularization that had its origin in the growing persuasiveness of scientific thinking. So like lots of inventions, discoveries, and they during that time they led to this scientific thinking. And so again this persuasiveness or like excessiveness of scientific thinking leads to this material wealth, like to gain material wealth more. So that is one thing. And obviously once you are engaged, so there is a saying like, if you want to earn money, then it's not the case that you must study very much. Fine. So it's like many billionaire, they are college dropouts. We have this data with us. So like Bill Gates. So these are the things that we have, that we have this Ambani. Fine. So so the thing is like, again, if you are only looking at this material wealth, then obviously there is no need to study literature. And if you think like, if I read literature and I will become billionaire, then that is not possible. So that type of mismatch we have uh, with this, the growth of Philistinism. And what actually is this attitude of Philistinism? The social rise of a self-important, money-oriented, and utterly conventional middle class. So, like we always give importance to ourselves. We are always in the chase of money, and that becomes the problem. So there will be no growth of literature. For example, nowadays many poets, they complain that we are poets, we write poetry, but no one reads poetry. Like I am a poet, I also uh, write poetry, but I know that if you write a short story, if you write a novel, then it is sellable. But if you write a poetry, then even many publication houses, they will refuse. Okay, we are not publishing poetry because no one is reading poetry. So that is again the thing. Like because publication house, they are also profit making machines, and they know like if they won't earn money through selling of books, then what is the fun of publishing them? So again, like the poets are always discouraged nowadays, because they know that nowadays not many people, they understand and read poetry seriously. So again, this type of thinking is known as Philistinism. Then what is the role of poetry? We have previously discussed in the previous slide that he expressed the wish that poetry would take its place in men's heart. So again, semi-religious role of poetry. So more and more mankind will discover that we have to turn to poetry to interpret life for us. So this is a criticism of life when in the side like Arnold regarded literature as a criticism of life. We said this thing that Arnold regarded literature as a criticism of life. So to turn to poetry to interpret life for us. For example, many people they are in the quest like what is life? They don't understand life. So they think like eating, enjoying, merrymaking, and like this is the entire life to get married, to have kids, fine, and then one day to die. That is that is one their notion that okay, this is the process, this is the progress we have seen. So this is life. So it says in a rather spiritual manner life for us. So we need to understand the greater meaning of life. It is not like self fulfillment only, but it has some other greater purpose to console us, to sustain us. Nowadays, many people they are committing suicide. So, like why they are committing suicide? They have everything, but they have nothing. So when you commit such type of step, when you take such type of step, then generally you believe that okay, I have nothing, I have no one in this world to console me, to sustain me. So what he says that we have to turn to poetry to interpret life for us. So someone who understands life will never take this drastic step that okay, I should end my life. So that is like there is a problem in the understanding of life, that you don't understand life. That's why you are taking such type of steps. Okay, I should kill myself, I should commit suicide. So that's why we have to turn to poetry to interpret life for us. So someone who understands life will never take this drastic step that okay, I should end my life. So that is like there is a problem in the understanding of life, that you don't understand life. That's why you are taking such type of step to console us, to sustain us. Without poetry, our science will I got disconnected in between. So how long I got disconnected? Hello, anyone?
Sir, around 2 or 3 minutes.
Okay, 3 minutes. Okay. So that is the thing. Like because once you make a full slide screen, then you do not know that whether you are disconnected or you are connected. So, okay, let me share it once again, the slide. Mm. Okay, this is the slide. So, how will you tell me if I am disconnected? So, I'm giving my number. In future, like if I disconnected, then please let me know that I am disconnected. Any one of you, you can make a call to me. Let me know I am disconnected, so I will reconnect myself. Fine. Okay. So, I have typed my number in the chat box so that I should not talk to my machine. uh, okay. So we were discussing like more views. The future of poetry is immense. Immense means huge because in poetry our race, as time goes on, will find an ever surer and surer stage. So again, this did not happen, but again, it's a visionary thing said by Arnold from the essay "The Study of Poetry" published in 1880. Then another important thing about culture, what is said, and actually in the preface of Culture and Anarchy in 1869, the best that has been thought and said in the world. This is like a much a quoted, anthologized statement. The best that has been thought and said in the world. So we will discuss all such things in detail. Then what is best? If we try to know what is best, then according to Arnold, the complex intellectual and emotional attitudes expressed in the civilization of ancient Greece. So the Greek literature, and he was well versed in Greek literature, like all university educated people of his time. So he was quite familiar with classical history and literature of Greek. So he would see Greek epics and plays that were more than 2,000 years old as contemporary texts. So that was the trend during that time, and he was very much influenced by Greek epics and plays. And still, when we study literary criticism, then generally it's a tradition to start either it with Plato or Aristotle. So we start with Plato and the concept of cave, the concept of catharsis, imitation, and all such things we study. So again, this English literature is very much influenced by Greek epics, plays, and Greek writers and critics. Now, when we say, or when Arnold said the best that has been thought and said in the world, so there is a problem with the word best. Now, what is this problem that we find? Actually, this is from the preface, like the best that has been thought and said in the world. So one problem is like the best is not necessarily confined to poetry. So again, best can be anything. So best can be like plantation, like very much plantation, and you have no this carbon emission. So that type of thing is also best. Now it has nothing to do with literature as such. So you have a good medicine or like a good living habit. Now that can be the best. So this problem with the best is like the best is not necessarily confined to poetry. That's one thing. And whatever is the best in one culture cannot be best for all. That is again like because cultures are different, human beings are different, cultural practices are different. So there is a possibility like the festivals, the rituals, the dressing, the clothing, the food habits I am adopting is not for all. So there is again the problem of best that we find. And what is best at one time cannot be the best all time best. So this we have already discussed like the best is always changeable, so it's not the case like something is best and it will remain best forever. So now we will look at the preface, and this one excerpt is from the preface, and what Arnold says in the preface to Culture and Anarchy, that the whole scope of essay is to recommend culture as the great help out of our present difficulties. So there were some present difficulties, and we will also discuss what present difficulties during the Arnold time. So that will become a backdrop of this entire prose work, Culture and Anarchy, a long essay you can consider in different chapters that we have. So culture being a pursuit of our total perfection by means of getting to know on all the matters which most concern to us, the best which has been thought and said in the world. So this is like a much quoted line, best which has been thought and said in the world. And through this knowledge, turning a stream of fresh and free thought upon. Now, this metaphor stream is quite good because the stream remains always fresh because and there is a famous saying by Heraclitus, and it says like you cannot stand on the same place on same stream twice. So it's like it's always moving, it's always free and fresh. So through this knowledge, turning a stream of fresh and free thought upon our stock notions and habits, which we now follow staunchly but mechanically, vainly imagining that there is a virtue in following them staunchly, which makes up for the mischief of following them mechanically. So you can see the style of writing, like this staunchly, mechanically. These are repeated. So once you read this entire work, Culture and Anarchy, then you will find that many such words, many such ideas are repetitive. So that was the style. So it's not the case like every line is saying something new in this entire work. Many things are repeated in different manner. So that type of work it is. But here the important thing is like this mechanical thing, and this mechanical thing is also associated with this secularization and scientific process, and it's staunchly but mechanically. So we follow those notions very staunchly. Very staunchly, that means like we are not thinking about our thinking is bound, it is not free. So that is again the problem that it highlights. So the thing is, this best is threatened. We have seen the problem in the best, but whatever the best that was in the mind of Arnold, that best is threatened. And how it is threatened? The evil is summarized by the anarchy of this title. So in this title, if we analyze, so we have one thing like culture and this anarchy. Anarchy is like there is no order. There is no order, and everyone is so free that everyone is doing whatever he or she feels like to do. So that is like that is indicating the misuse of newly gained democracy during that time. So there was a reform act in 1867, and what happened after the reformed act, like many people, they got a right to vote. And so right to vote is a part of a democracy, and because of that particular right, that particular reform act, everywhere in England there was an anarchy, which includes the self-centered unruliness. So there was a disorder of the working class and the hideous and grotesque illusions of middle class Protestantism. Fine. So these are actually from the book itself. So again, this anarchy, he was highlighting that self-centered unruliness of the working class and these illusions of the middle class. What type of illusions? Like to get more money, fine, to get material wealth, fine. So that were associated with that. So that is one thing that we have Protestantism, like middle class Protestantism. That is one thing. Then this unruliness of working class is another thing. Then there is an attitude, that is Hellenism. That Hellenism is again something that is related to the Greek culture. And at one place, Arnold says like this Hellenism is to be imported. Imported, that means like we import something that is not there in our own culture. So Hellenism is an attitude towards life, a way of being the world that he says. And in this attitude, in this Hellenism, we find freedom from fanaticism, delicacy of perception, the disinterested play of consciousness, and an inward spiritual activity that has for its characters increased sweetness, increased life, increased sympathy. So this literature, this Greek literature, will fill our life with light, life, sympathy, and sweetness. That is the belief of Matthew Arnold. Now, freedom from fanaticism, we do not want to like go in detail because we know like what is who is a fanatic and what type of concept is fanaticism. Then delicacy of perception, we also know, but this one phrase, disinterested play of consciousness, requires some elaboration. So what is this disinterestedness? Arnold felt that the duty of the critic was to prepare an atmosphere that would stimulate the artist and bring home to people a knowledge of the best literature. So this disinterestedness is not like, uh, I do not like romantic literature, why should I read romantic literature? Or if someone is writing romantic literature, someone is writing a romantic poetry, then why should I read them? I should provide my negative criticism. That type of thing is biased. So disinterested is like away from all prejudices, away from all biasedness. So there is a possibility that young population is more interested in love, reading about love, or reading about romantic poetry, and the older generation is not. So if older generation discard that type of writing altogether, that okay, I am 60-year-old, I am 70 years old, and like all these people are going mad behind love and writing poems on love. What is the use of that? So that type of thing is not disinterestedness. So criticism is disinterestedness. That is first thing, but it is not arts for the art's sake. Like okay, I'm just writing poetry irrespective of the fact whether someone wants to read or not. So I'm not interested in that. That is also not the case, as per Arnold's view. The critic must be disinterested not because he has no social function, but because he has one. So for that particular reason you need to be disinterested. Disinterested here means like unbiased, fine, without any prejudice. That is the meaning that you have. So further, when we look at the title of this Culture and Anarchy, then the complete title is Culture and Anarchy, an essay in political and social criticism. So basically, it is a series of periodical essays. So you know the concept of periodical. So during that time in newspapers, like certain essays, find certain short stories. So novels were also published in a periodical manner. So similarly, it was a series of a periodical essay by Arnold, first published in this Cornhill magazine and collected as a book in 1869. So we finally know that the publication of Culture and Anarchy as 1869, that is the publication date. But this information is also important if you are writing for net examination. So the preface was added in 1869. So preface is just the introduction. Preface says like in which chapter what thing is there. So that is basically the purpose of a preface, to just show some light uh, in the coming chapters of that particular book. So we have like 6 chapters in Culture and Anarchy, and the first chapter is Sweetness and Light, and I think this is the part of your syllabus as well. And the chapter 2 is Doing as One Likes, and the third chapter Barbarian, Philistines and Populace. That is again the third chapter. That is the part of I think your syllabus. Then chapter 4, Hebraism and Hellenism. I think that is also the part of your syllabus. Chapter 5 is Poro Unum Est Necessarium, and which means, but one thing is needful. That is chapter 5, and chapter 6 is our liberal practitioners. So we will look at uh, what is there in each chapters, and but our focus will be on sweetness and light. Our focus will be on Hebraism and Hellenism. Our focus will be on barbarian, Philistines and populace. So that will be our focus. So I hope like I am the part of the group. Are you listening me? Hello.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, yes, fine. So I will ask you this type of question in between. So I'll be informed that okay, I am part of the group. So, but before we look at this each individual chapters, it is also good to look at what type of style, what type of mood, what type of argumentative method, what type of persuasiveness adopted by Matthew Arnold in Culture and Anarchy. So the thing is like at the backdrop we have seen that there was a reform bill of 1867. So in Culture and Anarchy, Matthew Arnold sought a center of authority. So poetry will become the authority, literature will become the culture, will become the authority, by which the anarchy caused by the troubled passage of the Reform Bill of 1867 might be regulated. So once there is a change in the society, then obviously there are lots of agitation, there are uh, lots of regulations, there are lots of problems, troubles. So for that particular purpose, so this is an answer that okay, all these problems will be solved if you put culture at the center, if you replace religion by culture at the center. So in culture, poetry is also one such part. So that is the basic idea. And if we look at the style, if you read this Culture and Anarchy, then you will find it is clear, flexible, and convincing. That means persuasive. You want the Matthew Arnold wants his readers to be convinced that whatever I'm saying that is correct, and you just change the way you look at this world. You need to change the way you perceive your life, and how you can change once you change the center of authority. So now you believe that religion or some god is the center of authority. Now it should be replaced by culture. Then the mood is indignation. He was filled with anger, impatience, and fear because lots of riots that were happening around, and this Irish people, they were also demanding for a separate republic for themselves. So also things were there. Then, as we mentioned earlier, and we have seen that many things are repetitive. So, though it is argumentative, this Culture and Anarchy is written in an argumentative tone, but again, it is repetitious and unsystematic. So, it doesn't follow a system in a manner like starting with introduction, then theoretical background, then you have a discussion, analysis, and then the conclusion. So that type of system it does not follow. So generally this essay, it starts with these type of headings, but that is not the case. But it is quite persuasive. And uh, what Matthew Arnold emphasized, that Victorian middle class, it must reform itself before it can begin to reform the entire nation. So the main focus is on the middle class, because middle class is the majority of the population. The working class is minority, as well as the aristocrat, they are also the minority. If we look at in any nation, we will find that a majority of the people are middle class. So the focus is on the middle class, and this appeal, this persuasive appeal is made by Arnold to middle class mainly. And there are so many irony and shifts of ridicules, like sometimes mocking to their audience, fine, and irony that is there. So for example, this best is something ironical, like what can be the best. So this irony that we find here. So when we look at this, like what is the background of writing this Culture and Anarchy, then we find that Arnold primarily directed his criticism against the utilitarianism. So there is one utilitarianism, that whatever we should do, if it has some utility, then it is fine. So we have a novel by Charles Dickens like Hard Times. So again, there is one schoolmaster that is like always teaching facts. So that type of thing is like more concerned about scientific thinking, more concerned about facts, and if something is not factual, then it is useless. So, utilitarianism and the followers of Jeremy Bentham and John Stuart Mill, because we know like these names are associated with utilitarianism, and against the various movements of liberal reform. Like, what is this liberal reform? Actually, this economic reform. Like, you can do trade as you feel like, fine, you can sell your product to anyone. It's like a part of capitalism, this liberalism is. And so Matthew Arnold was actually disturbed. That is one thing, that the views, utilitarian views, they were in rampant. At the same time, he was also disturbed by social and political confusion. So what is that? Fenianism. Fenianism is again that related to the demand of Irish Republic, Irish Brotherhood, and the Hyde Park riots of 1866. So immediately, like these type of riots, they were taking place. Like these reforms should not be taken place, should not be implemented. So one party was saying like that, other party was demanding, no, 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 we want reform, we also want to vote. So that type of thing was there. And the inability of either the church or the government to cope with the growing unrest both in England and on the continent. So in the continent, like if we consider other nations as well, or if we look at like this United Kingdom, where we have Wales, we have this Ireland that we have. So if we take into consideration that, then also, so there were lots of unrest there during that time. So this became the background, this became an answer of Matthew Arnold in Culture and Anarchy. So as we discussed that in Culture and Anarchy, we have six chapters, and we will look at like what Arnold is saying in these six chapters. And the first chapter is sweetness and light. So in this in this chapter, first chapter, he is actually defining what is culture. In sweetness and light, he is defining culture. And what he's saying that culture is a socially inexplorable movement towards the idea of sweetness, towards the idea of what is good for them. That is basically the idea. And an idea to seek perfection. So perfection is again such type of an end. If we see it like perfection is related to not to the process, but perfection is related to end. So again, there is a problem, there is an irony in the idea of perfection as well. So what Arnold says, in seeking perfection, there are two requirements: an eagerness to learn based on seeking things as they really are, and the effort to ensure that the rest of the society is constructed upon this knowledge and recognition. So again, two things are there. So one such thing is like an eagerness to learn based on seeing things as they really are. So like it's actually not possible for a human being to see things as really are. Like it is again a very difficult thing, because we have lots of philosophy based on what is real, what is unreal, what is reality, and what is not real. So seeing things as they really are, that is one thing. Again, you are making it like very scientific, like 2 plus 2 is always 4, it can never be 5. So that type of thing is there. An effort to ensure that the rest of the society is constructed upon this knowledge and recognition. So again, there is an irony. Like when we talk about seeing things as they really are, then what is the role of fiction? Seeing things were as they are, then what is the role of metaphor? But we know that the language is metaphorical, fine, and metaphors, they play an important role in literature. So again, the irony is that culture is never completed because perfection cannot be attained. So we cannot attain perfection. Culture is always in flux and adaptable. So that is like something that is in flux and adaptable, that is, that thing is always evolving, that we have. So we cannot consider culture as a product, but culture as a process. So that is the basic idea in chapter 1. In chapter 2, doing as one likes. So again, doing as one like is related to like if every individual will do whatever he or she feels like, then there is an anarchy. So like in the first chapter we have this culture, in second chapter we have this anarchy. So rather than an assertion of philosophy like the first chapter, the second chapter is really more like a response essay. The response to criticism, however, effectively serves the purpose of defining what lies in opposition to culture. Anarchy, disorderly, everything is in disorder, there is no order as such. So anarchy is the result of doing as one likes on the basis of the freedom to enjoy the act rather than on the consequences of the act. So whatever we do, we are not thinking about the outcome. We simply want to do it, and we are not concerned about the result, what is going to happen. And most of the time, like this is the problem with the democracy as well, like because democracy provides unlimited freedom to all. So everyone is talking about my right, what are my right, but no one is talking about what are my duties. So this is the problem. So there is a mismatch. So if you are not taking care of your duties, then how can you demand for your rights? So you need to make a balance. So that type of thing is there, that you are more concerned about your rights. Oh, this is my human right, this is my human violation, you are doing this, you are doing that. But because of that, what you are doing, like you are throwing garbage here and there, fine, you are not following traffic rules. Like once government say like you should use helmet, then you are not using it. You are driving a car without a license. But all such things are, you are not paying for the insurance. So the thing is like you want to enjoy your rights, but you don't want to perform your duties. That is the problem, and that is the result of anarchy as such. So thus in Arnold's mode of structural thinking, anarchy differs substantially from the modern definition in that It is worshipping freedom itself as a concept rather than the benefits which come with understanding the responsibility that come with being free. So it's like you are enjoying that freedom so blindly that you do not understand what to become a responsible citizen also. So when it is a time to get educated, you are not studying. So again, like you are not adequately enjoying your freedom. So technically, like someone who is a student of MA in English, the student should study seriously. But what most of the students they are doing, okay, I will buy some notes, or I will do this thing, or I will do some shortcut. Again, it is not a responsible behavior if you want to be, let's say, a responsible citizen in that sense. So again, this is an act of anarchy as such. So we will focus on the sweetness and light, because as you know that the sweetness and light is also the part of your syllabus. So basically, the sweetness and light was first used by Jonathan Swift, and Jonathan Swift is famous for this Gulliver Travels and other such parody. So in 1704, Swift wrote of beauty and intelligence. So he used the term beauty and intelligence, and the two, he said, like these two things are the noblest thing. So beauty is associated with sweetness, and intelligence is associated with light. So again, if you are intelligent, then we generally make such type of comparison, like uh, a, a dumb and a light. Fine, so that type of thing is a bright light. He is a bright chap. So again, these type of metaphors we use. So this type of phrase, like this phrase later on became so famous. So in 1869, Arnold made Swift's later phrase a touchstone of the Victorian sensibility as the title of the first chapter of his Culture and Anarchy. So this become the first chapter, sweetness and light, and we know like from where this thing has been borrowed from. So culture looks beyond machinery. So something that is mechanic, that cannot be sweet. So you will never say, oh, I have a sweet machine. You will never say this thing, oh, I have a sweet laptop, oh, I have a sweet mobile phone. You will say, I have a smart mobile phone. You will not say. So that is the difference. Like culture looks beyond machinery. So something that is so mechanical, that is not actually culture. Culture hates hatred. That is again like when you hate hatred, that means like you are adaptable to many things, many new ideas. Culture has one great passion, the passion for sweetness and light. It has one even yet greater. Fine. So this is the one great passion that a culture has, that is for sweetness. So if you are sweet, then even if you do not like someone, then you will not use harsh word. If you are sweet, fine. So this is the definition of sweetness. That okay, if you do not like someone, but still you are sweet, you will not become harsh. You will not say the words, bad words. So that is the commonsensical definition of sweetness that we have. Then further, Arnold said, it is not satisfied till we all come to a perfect man. So again, like this ironical concept, perfection is here. It knows that the sweetness and light of few must be imperfect until the raw and unkindled masses of humanity are touched with sweetness and light. So that means again the thing that we have that we have seen previously, uh, and that like something is to be passed upon to the future generation as well. So that is required, that something something we need to learn, an eagerness to learn based on seeing things as they really are. So that means like we are not in the process of unnecessary changing someone, that you be like me. That is not the aim of a culture, like be like me. That's not actually the aim. So seeing things as they really are, and the effort to ensure that the rest of the society is constructed upon this knowledge and recognition. So that type of thing we need to impart upon. That is also the case. Then only it must be real thought and real beauty, real sweetness and real light. So much things are real, and this real is actually the answer for what he says, disinterested play of consciousness. And if you want to know what is disinterested play of consciousness, That means to see a thing what it actually is like. So that is the way of looking at things. So looking at things as they really are. So it's like a stage like a Buddha. You have become a Buddha and you are seeing the things as they really are. So it's like a person, the hero of the Matrix. The person is seeing everything very clearly that okay, this is everything is illusion and what is reality. So if you had watched that movie, then you would recall that there is a blue pill and there is a red pill, and if you take the appropriate pill, uh, that capsule, then you will realize what reality is. So only it must be real thought and real beauty, real sweetness and real light. That is the stage of disinterestedness of consciousness that is mentioned. Disinterested plea of consciousness that we have. Plenty of people will try to give the masses, as they call them, an intellectual food prepared and adopted in the way they think proper for the actual conditions of the masses. So that is there. That is the highlight of this chapter 1. Then in this, we will discuss what is there in chapter 3. And chapter 3, I think, is also the part of your syllabus, that is barbarian, Philistines, and populace. So that is also the part. So can we take a 5 minutes break and then we rejoin? What do you say? Uh, can we take a 5 minutes break?
Okay, sir.
Yes,
Fine.
yes.
Yes. And so it is like 12:03. So we will join at 12:10. Fine. Okay, we are back. So, are you there, all of you?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So, we will discuss this chapter three, the barbarians, Philistines, and populace. The terminology of the past is exploited by Arnold to describe the then modern subdivision of classes. Uh, so we already know like who is a barbarian and who is a Philistine. So that is already there, but a new type of definition, that type of definition or new type of ideas which are associated with these are the barbarians are represented by the privileged aristocracy, while the role of Philistines had been handed down to the middle class. So who are barbarians? Let's say privileged aristocracy, and who are Philistines? They are the middle class. So we have previously discussed like why they are called Philistines, like the middle class. Why? Because they are so mad about the material wealth. So that means the working got off pretty easy with just being called the populace. So uh, it's like populace is only for the working class. Here it is reserved. And what are the traits which are associated with that? So barbarians, they are not open to freshness. That we can say like they are not open to uh, fresh ideas that are there. So they are very much rigid. That okay, we do not want any change. And Philistines are defined by self-satisfaction and too prone to conservative acceptance of the status quo. Again, like they do not want, they also do not want much change. But the important thing is the populace turns out to be the real fly in the ointment, and you know what will happen to a fly in the ointment, because the thing is like it cannot move out from the ointment. So that is like populace, like the working class, they know that they cannot become barbarian. So what they aspire for, they actually aspire for that. Okay, we want to be like Philistines. So they want to get the the material wealth, so that their next step is to get the material wealth. So for example, like someone who is living in a nearby village, uh, Delhi, then what that person aspired, the person aspired that okay, I should a home at I should buy a house at Delhi. So that is the aspiration only. That is the lifetime achievement. Someone who is living in a village nearby Delhi, that person only aspires like I must have some like even two rooms like or a small flat, but it must happen. So that type of aspiration, because they know like they can't reach. I'm just giving you example to understand this concept, like what type of aspiration these type of people they have. And the problem is with the reform right 1867, all these three people like barbarians, like the privileged aristocracy, as well as the middle class, as well as the populace, they all get the right to vote. So that is basically the problem, that they got the right to vote. So this type of thing is associated with these three barbarian, Philistines, and populace in chapter 3 that we have. Then the chapter that is Hebraism and Hellenism. Now they are again in contrast with each other. So when we say Hebraism, that is like we are talking about this Hebrew tradition or Jewish tradition, and Jewish tradition versus a Greek tradition. So again, like one is money oriented tradition and one is like literary oriented tradition. So that that contrast that we have. So what Arnold says like what will be the ideal situation is very much a synthesis of the two. Like with the Hebraic system is highly constructed and codified system of conduct and obedience, having its dark side. So like religion offers us lots of do's and don'ts. So that is also religion in a way, let's say Christianity, that is also a part of like Hebraism, because lots of do's and don'ts that we have, and that is the dark side. But at the same time, we have this fresh air, we have this freshness, and this freshness comes from this Hellenism. That the freshness comes from this this Greek culture that we have. So that is the part of chapter 4, and we will discuss this Hebraism and Hellenism in great detail, because here we are just looking at the bird eye view of what's there in these chapters. Then in the chapter 5, Poro unum est necessarium, and it is a Latin phrase, and the translation goes like, but one thing that is needful. So again, like the one thing that is needful, it's like a phrase that we have, and the phrase that indicates that what is to be done. So we need to also understand that when these essays, these like 5 chapters, they were written, and during that time when the Puritans dominated the discourse of British theology. Fine. So like we already have this concept of Puritans who are Puritans, and we know like. During the time when Milton was writing, then there were incidents like theaters was closed, and there was a time when the religion was becoming an oppressor during that time. So that time we also know. So that is again like there is no fresh air, and then we know like we had a movement like romantic movement. So romantic movement came with this idea of freedom in writing, and the writers that are associated with them, that we also have. So Arnold's response is essentially to Jack Torrance, like in its estimation, all work and no play make Puritan Jack dull. So it's like someone who is a Puritan and the name of the person is Jack, then obviously that person will become dull. And by dull is meant not boring but incomplete here. So that means like that is required, like this fresh air is required, this freshness is required in order to be perfect, as Arnold says, like a perfect man, or our aim is to reach perfection. That's there that we have. Then okay, sorry, we have this last chapter, our our liberal practitioners, and in this again the focus is on the liberalism, and we know like the concepts which are associated with liberalism, they are like economic freedom that is there, and what it is there. But Arnold said like this is usually considered the least interesting section of this book for modern readers, because it is an attempt to apply the theoretic constructs outlined previously to concrete political and religious event occurring in England at that time. So again, like it's an application part, that how things that are mentioned in the previous one that can be implemented. And in this chapter we have references to the real estate bill, the liberation society, and multiple personages whose names are lost to all, but the most precisely focused on the historical scholars and the other people that are associated with that. So generally in order to just give you a bird eye view, I have collected some of the materials, even like I have not gone through the entire chapter 6, because most of the time, like in syllabuses, we have these 3 chapters like sweetness and light, and we have this chapter like Hebraism versus Hellenism, or we have the concepts like which are associated with this Philistinism, or what is related to uh, poetry. So now the more focused thing is like what is actually the culture, what is culture, and we will look at what Matthew Arnold's want to say when he talks about like culture is so perfect and culture should be the part of the authority. So he defined on the level of the individuals as a pursuit of our total perfection by means of getting to know on all matters which most concern us, the best which has been taught and said in the world. So whatever is best, whatever has been thought, and according to Arnold, that is related to Greek culture, and that is to be taught and that is to be adopted. So that is one thing, and this should be done at individual level. That is again the point, like it should not be done at the collective level but at the individual level. So individual should realize his or her real self. That is the important thing, because this authority is internal. So this authority is not like the authority that we find in Gramsci. Like we have the authority of the government, the authority of the state, the authority of the church. That type of, not that authority we are not talking about, but it is like self discipline, more like a self discipline, that you have this culture, you have this literature, and you have this knowledge, and you try uh, to build upon yourself with that authority. It is a study of perfection within the individual, a study that should elevate the best self. So again, this word best is there, through a fresh and free search of beauty and intelligence, by following right reason, the disinterested intellectual pursuit of the best self. Arnold foresaw a way to overcome the social political confusion of the 1860s and to prepare for a future in which all could be happy and free. So that is again the part of this that we have. And to more on culture, Arnold clarifies his definition of culture by tracing its origin to curiosity of scientific passion. So it's not like scientific reasoning all the time, but a scientific passion. That means like you are always curious, you always desire to see things that they really are. So that's like you are not deceived by the illusions. Or to morality, social passion, the desire to do good. So these two things are there. One is so scientific passion, and other one is the social passion that is associated with that. And Christianity, as he saw it, is like culture in that it also seeks to learn the will of God, that is human perfection, and make it prevail. Culture goes beyond religion. So it's like he says like culture, this religion, particularly Christianity, is also like culture, but culture is better than religion. That is the thing. As interested by the non-conformist in that it is a harmonious expansion of all human powers. So something that are limited in religion, that can be expanded, that find expansions or harmonious expansion of all human powers in culture. So it's like culture is will take a place of religion, that is said by to Arnold. So what else he said on culture? Culture is opposed to utilitarianism, we have seen, which Arnold considered mechanical because it worshipped means rather than ends. So again, like there is a fight between means and ends. Like perfection is always an end and it's not a mean, that we have already seen. So anything materialism like economic greatness, individual wealth, bodily health, puritanism, so that was treated as an end except that of human perfectibility. That was to Arnold merely machinery that lead to anarchy. So we need to focus on the ends according to Matthew Arnold. We need not to focus on the means. But again, like once we focus on the end, then we are focusing on the product. We are not focusing on the process. So again, that type of irony that is there. Only culture, the harmonious union of poetry. So in what we have in culture, the harmonious union of poetry, the ideal of beauty, the religion, the ideal of morality, sees itself as a means that perceives the totality of the individual. So in religion we have one thing, the ideal of morality, but what we have in culture, we have the ideal of beauty as well as the ideal of morality both. So that's why a harmonious union we require in culture. Sees itself as a means that preserves the totality of individual. Culture looks beyond machinery. It has only one passion, the passion for sweetness, that is beauty, and light, intelligence, and the passion to make them prevail. So again, the beauty and light we have previously, the sweetness and light we have previously discussed in the first chapter, the chapter 1 of culture and anarchy, and that thing is again re-emphasized, and that can be done harmoniously through uh, the blending of in culture. Then this anarchy, uh, Arnold saw that the characteristic view of English people towards happiness as the individual freedom, but he also saw that each class had its own opinion as to do what it considered freedom to be. In other words, there was a strong belief in freedom, but a weak belief in right reason. So that should view freedom disinterestedly. So that is the problem that we have. Like we have ultimate freedom, and we do not know how to use that freedom, how to utilize that freedom, how to act responsibly. That is one thing. And in reality, the state was being led towards anarchy by class interest. So, because the aristocracy or barbarians was inaccessible to new, fresh ideas, the middle class or Philistines had zeal but not knowledge, and the working class or the populace was raw and untrained. So, again, like some shortcoming and some merits and demerits that are mentioned, like aristocracy. They have like this problem that they are inaccessible to new and fresh ideas. Middle class, they are zealous but they are not knowledgeable, and the working class, they are raw and untrained, they do not know what to do, what to follow. So that type of like three different people, they have ultimate freedom, they have their self interest, and if they start behaving only in their self interest and and following their selfish nature, then obviously there will become an anarchy that we have. So what it says, like culture alone could join the two sides of the individual. Culture alone could overcome the narrow views of these three classes. So that's why culture is like an amalgamation of all the three classes, and it will combine them. Members of the different classes possess the same human nature, and so happiness as freedom. Also, the best self was common to all the classes. So, um, what is happiness that is common to them, and what is the best self that can be realized through culture, that is again that is there. And then so what is we will also discuss something on individual as well, because the best self, the individual self, is highlighted in Arnold's culture and anarchy. So what it says, therefore, since authority could be found neither in religion nor in politics, it could be found only in individuals who, by following the right reason rather than class biases, could assert their best self in the harmonious union that sought the best for everyone. So if you look at if you look at political parties, like if you look at the government, that government will provide you all the answers, then it will not be the case. And if you look at the religions bodies, they will provide you all the answers for your happiness, for your well-being. That is not the case. So emphasis must be the internal thing, that individuals, they must look into themselves and come out from this class biases and try to find out what is best for them. The major impediment, the major problem to such a state were that Arnold called atheism, the outright denial of such a thing as right reason, and quietism, the utilitarian belief that reason was the result of habit. So it's like reason is like a habit, like a habit formation. So that is again, like if it is a habit formation, then obviously there is no curiosity, because once something is a habit, then there nothing will become interesting, it becomes like very monotonous, then there is a problem. So these implements like quietism, that means like reason is the result of habit, that is to be rejected, and then the outright denial of such thing as right reason, that should also be rejected. That Arnold says. Then, when it comes to Hebraism and Hellenism, Arnold accounted for the very ground and cause out of which actual behavior arises, by distinguishing between the energy in human affairs that drives practice, the obligation of duty, self-control, and work. So these are Hebraism, and the energy that drives those ideas that are the basis of right practice. So these two things are there. We need to understand that with Hebraism, this obligation, this duty, this self-control, and something that is mechanical that is associated with. And in Hellenism, we have this freedom, this freshness, the fresh ideas that are to be uh, implemented, that are to be incorporated. So, like the scientific passion, Hellenism's chief function is to see things as they really are. So, this is like a buzzword here. Many times it is used, that to see things as they really are, like a social passion that we have. Hebraism seeks proper conduct and obedience. Both drives aim at human perfection or salvation. So, Matthew Arnold is not saying that you should just do away with this Hebraism altogether. He says like, okay, both are necessary. Both drives aim at human perfection or salvation, but their means and ideals are sharply different. Hebraism, or strictness of conscience, inculcates a sense of sin, but Hellenism, the spontaneity of consciousness, teaches what Allen's called culture. So, but there is a difference, like when there is so much strictness, and once you cannot follow that strictness in terms of morality, in terms of religion, then some sort of guilt comes into your mind. So that thing should not happen. And Hellenism, we have spontaneity of consciousness, and we do not get that type of guilt or sin that is associated with. So basically this is a philosophy that is associated. So, what is the solution? Arnold suggested that Hellenism to be imported because it's not the part of their culture. In Hellenism, which ultimately is a synonym of for culture, the ideals of internal harmony or the unity of the total human being and of the harmony with things overcome the one-sidedness of Hebraism. So that is to be attained, and the other drive, however, should not be excluded. For Hellenism alone leads to moral relaxation. There should be a harmony of both sides, a union from which would come the awakening of the healthier and less mechanical activity. So both things are to be synthesized in order to attain this perfection, this perfect man, or what we call culture. So this is for all, and what we have discussed, because it's a philosophy. It's like more like a social and political document, and his response was on the social unrest that was going on during that time, and the political turmoil that was going on during that time, and the philosophy that is influenced by different philosophers. So we have lots of repetition that is there, and you will find like lots of things which are not put in a proper systematic manner. So that thing is there, but this entire book became a huge hit, and still it is quite relevant. But it is more like a philosophical treatise, because there are many things which are more philosophical. For example, if you want to know, if you want to raise this question that uh, how can uh, how can I be the best self, then obviously it's not like a ready-made solution that I will give you two-line answer that okay, this is the way you can become the best self. So for that you need to uh, internalize those things which are sweet, uh, which are intellectual, which are beautiful. So in that holistic manner, so it's not like you are sweet to certain things, you are not sweet to certain things. You are using your scientific reasoning to certain things, and you are not using to certain things. So that should not happen. So those are the things that we need to keep in mind, and we need to keep those things holistically. So if you have any question, any doubt, someone wants to raise any question, they can also write in the chat box. I will try to answer those questions.
Yes, sir. Sir, I make a question.
Yes,
Hello.
yes, yes.
Yes, sir. Sir, is materialistic prosperity the only thing uh, that belongs to Philistine value?
No, that is not the aspiration to gain material wealth. That is very much there in the Philistine. That is the thing. Uh, it's like they aspire for material goods more than the other people. That is basically the meaning.
Okay, sir. Sir, one more thing, sir. You mentioned barbarians as the aristocrats, but if we view that Matthew Arnold actually criticizes the middle classes. So
Mhm.
and the aristocrats are actually individualists. So
Yes.
can we say that this essay is against individualism?
No, we can't say this is against individualism, because many times like people they misinterpret that because the focus is on the middle class, but it is not the case that he appreciated this aristocracy fully. That is not the case, and you need to understand like why he was so harsh on middle class and not on aristocracy, because still you find that in England only we have still the queen, fine, that we have. So still the people, they have great faith in aristocracy, like the kings and the queens, and they still respect them a lot. So that is the present situation. So but you can think of like in 1867, that during that time, to write totally against aristocracy was not a simple matter as it is now. So that might be one reason that why he was not so critical of aristocracy, and he was very much critical of the middle class, because middle class uh, they recently started getting material wealth. They started getting those privileges, like to vote, to establish a factory, and to earn more money, to establish other things and industry, so that type of thing. So he was like more harsh, because if you look at the history of any culture, mostly any culture, then most of the epics that we consider epics, actually, for example, Ramayana and Mahabharata, they are the epics in Indian tradition generally, particularly for the Hindi speaker, or particularly for the Sanskrit belt languages. Now, what is the reason? And if you try to find out at when they were written at the time when there was aristocracy, actually. So, and if we say, like, do we have any such literature like Ramayana and Mahabharata now that will be that can be put parallel to Ramayana and Mahabharata? The answer is no. So in that manner, we can say, like, because the past experiences showed that okay, you have timeless literature only when you have aristocracy, and you do not have timeless literature when you have like a democracy. So there is a possibility, like, if democracy remains for, let's say, 2000 years or 3000 years in future, then we will have such type of epics in future as well. But that is a matter of like inquiry, or that is a matter of concern. So for that particular reason, you can sense that as Arnold was more harsh on middle class, because middle class was getting power, getting privileges that were not the part of that, and he was a bit skeptical as well, like whether middle class will be able to handle that power that newly given to them. So that is my answer to that.
Okay, sir, clearly understood, sir. Sir, you mentioned Matthew Arnold viewed literature as criticism of life, and
Yes.
when I was going through poetry as a literary type, I find he mentioned poetry as bottom of the criticism of life. So, what is the difference between this?
Uh, okay, when you read such type of statements, first of all, you need to read them metaphorically, like literature, because these writers sometimes they use literature as poetry, poetry as literature. Fine, interchangeably, sometimes it is used. So it's not literature sometimes, and they consider this holistic literature. That is one thing. And sometimes when they are talking about poetry, they are using the term literature. When they are talking about literature, they are talking about poetry. So when we say literature is a criticism of life, that means the basic thing is like literature teaches us. Literature teaches us so many things that Arnold believes can be implemented, can make our life better. So, in that matter, we can say that literature is a criticism of life. So, what is a criticism of life? Like a guideline that is there, that this is the way through which you can lead a good life. And so, if you are educated, if you have sweetness, if you are intellectual, if you are high mindedness, if you have lofty ideas, fine, if you have noble thinking, so all such things you will get through literature. But at the same time, you have wise characters as well. So you have a villain in literature. There are crooked people in literature. There are lots of killings in literature. but it is not the case. Like literature is promoting them that okay, you should also become a wise person, you will also become a bad person, you should also act like that. So the thing is like you need to take whatever is good, whatever is sweetness that is there, that literature is offering to you. And then literature is a criticism of life. That means you know the bad things that are there in literature, good things that are there in literature, but you need to pick the good things only. For example, it is said like in Mahabharata, all the types of people that are there in the world, that type is mentioned. So someone who has studied Mahabharata uh, seriously, sincerely, then that person has a better understanding to see people. So like still like people they fight for women, still people they fight for land, still people the brother is killing a brother. So like these things are not like today it is happening. These are ages old things. And we also know once we do a bad thing, we know that we are doing a bad thing, but still we know what is good, but still we do not do the good. So all such things are also there. So that's why literature is a criticism of life. That's my answer.
Okay, sir. Thanks.
So shall we end this session now?
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Sir, can you again repeat the casting method?
uh, what I mentioned, yeah, I didn't get you.
Yes, sir. Can you again repeat the casting method?
The last word is not clear. What do you want? Yes. Can you write in the chat box? Your voice is not clear.
Yes, sir. Yes, yes.
You write in the chat box. Touchstone method. Touchstone method is like a standard. Touchstone is like a stone actually. Actually, touchstone is a stone that is used to check the quality of a metal, whether the metal is a gold or not. So again, touchstone method is like a standard criteria. Touchstone is like actually a standard through which we can check whether literature is a literature or not. So what is the touchstone method? Like it is based on the Greek literature. So you what he says like Hellenism, fine. So if a literature is based on the ideals that are posited in the Greek literature, then the literature is literature. So that means like lofty ideas, high-mindedness, intellectual writing, that type of thing is associated uh, with this touchstone. Like you can check whether a literature is a good literature or not. So and also like you need to read other works as well. The views like the views of Arnold on Shakespeare, the views of Arnold on, let's say, Dante and other writers. So you will also get to know like how to judge whether a piece of writing is a good literature or not. So basically, the thing is like if the good literature is always timeless. So timeless, I mean like people will read irrespective uh, of decades, centuries. They will always be a hit. So that is basically the criterion of classics. That classics will you will always try to keep those books with you. You always try to keep you always try to read those books again. Let's say I have read Pride and Prejudice, then again I will try to read Pride and Prejudice in 10 years, after 10 years. So that is again basically the criterion. So that is actually the touchstone of finding out what is a good literature. So it's like a standard that we are maintaining. Is it fine?
Okay, sir. Okay.
Yes. Okay, so shall we end this session now?
Sir, sir, one last question, sir. Uh,
Yes.
Sir, you mentioned men are not machine, and Matthew Arnold viewed this essay, or Matthew Arnold tried to write this essay beyond machinery. So, sir, what does he mean by machinery, and how it is correlated with machinery, or what
Machinery.
is that?
Machinery.
Can
Machinery you
machinery?
want?
Yes,
Mechanical
sir.
and
Sorry, sir.
machinery? Yeah.
Yes, sir. what is the correlation between machinery and society or
Correlation.
culture?
Yeah, the
Yes.
thing is like, what is the function of a machine? Machine produces something innumerable times, fine, and there is no creativity in that. Like if a machine is set up to produce, let's say, potato chips, then it will always produce potato chips. The machine will not produce, let's say, someday a juice, fine. So a potato chips machine will always produce potato chips. A juice making machine will always produce a juice. That is the limitation of a machine. So there is no there is a mechanization, and mechanization is in such a manner that you have unlimited number of production. For example, like you will produce the same thing innumerable times and in such an access that you will find everywhere. So once you go around, you will find in outside every shop potato chips, fine, the wrappers of potato chips in different colors, and that are there. So that is why they are producing in such numbers. Like this mechanical wealth is a sign of only one thing, that you simply want to gain monetary benefit and not any other thing. So have you heard that a potato chips company is promoting a literary festival? So that type of thing is there. Like they are not concerned about whether people will become healthy, because if you eat excessive potato chips, then what will happen? You will become unhealthy. So they are not concerned about your well-being. They are simply concerned about their monetary benefit. That they very well know that, okay, you eat as much as you want, and we are not concerned about whether you get obese, you will become fat. We are not concerned about that. So that is not sweetness. That is not sweetness. That is this machinery is not sweet. So if it is sweet, then it will say like, okay, only eat potato chips once in a week, not eat it daily. But that type of things you will never find on a potato chips. So that type of thing is there. And they know. I'm just giving a very crude example in order to make you understand what is this mechanic, or this machinery type of thinking that we have. So they want that you will become an addict. So we have this one chemical element they put in the food item, and because of that particular that element makes the taste of the food um, uh, in a manner so good that we try to eat the same type of flavor again and again. So it like adds that artificial flavors in that particular type of food, that you become an addict. So always you want that chips. So you find like those chips, when you are hungry, you won't go for a chapati, you won't go for any other thing, you go for that a bottle of coke and chips. So that type of thing is there. That type of production is related to this machinery, and this thing. I think I have answered your question, Ashish.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you. I was totally pleased. Thank you
Fine.
so much.
Okay, okay, then we end this session. Thank you all. Fine.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.